Aloha everyone, this is Leimomi Keliikuli Intuitive Soul Online Mindset Coach. I'm so excited to have Tia Johnson here. This is our LeimomiTV interview series where I interview amazing 6-7-figure entrepreneurs who are doing amazing things, who are master genius at what they do. And so we're sharing their stories, sharing about their journey of how they got into alignment, how they were not in alignment, and really about sharing about today's topic, which is, depths of your divine powers. So thank you so much, Tia, for making some time to see us here. Why don't you start with, who you are, how did you become a master genius at what you do, and share a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. Yeah. So I help spiritually centered people, mainly women, to understand their spiritual gifts, to understand their life purpose, and to figure out ways to move forward in that process. So there's a lot of healing and a lot of action, being proactive throughout the process.
That's awesome. I love that you're helping them with the deeper purpose and bringing it out of them.
Oh yeah, it's so much fun. And I always love when people just put it all together. It's like, oh man, that makes so much sense. It's just like pieces of a puzzle, really.
Yes. So from your perspective of your genius, why is it important to know such things, right, of your purpose and everything to create a life of success? Like, why is that important?
Yeah, that's so important because once we figure that out, then we know exactly what we are meant to do and how we can do that, even if we don't see the full path. So that's how we can help other people. Some people think that they're not good at something, but that's not true. A lot of times it just requires practice and just changing the course a bit. So once you can just narrow down on that, your world just becomes so much more easier, and you'll be able to figure out who you need in your life and what you need to do.
Absolutely. I think like we get through life and just, like work hard and go to our 9-to-5 job and everything, but there's something deeper that wants to come out of the person, right? And finding that sounds like that's what you uncover for them.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because it's really like a journey. And I feel like I'm just that person that you meet by the side of the road, sitting on a tree stump, and you're just thinking, hey, I was going to go down this path, but I'm not quite sure. Down there, it doesn't look too good. I don't know. And that's really could be the shadow aspect or just some uncharted territory. So I'm really just a messenger, just helping people along the way.
I love that. That's so true. We need somebody to kind of just go like, hey, like go there, go here, right? And here's your choices. This is the direction you can go. You can either choose that way or this way. And you just come from a space to hold that space for them to make that decision. And here you go. Like they end up doing amazing things later, right?
Oh yeah. And it's so interesting, especially when they reflect on, hey, I started here and now I'm here, but they may have imagined themselves somewhere along the middle. So yeah, it's always unraveling, always learning, and always just that good feeling of, man, look how far I came.
Mm-hmm. So when you were growing up as a child, like what lit you up? Like how does that play into what you do now?
Yeah, so when I was a kid, even now, I am a daydreamer. I was the kid who was doodling in class, which was a little hard because sometimes our notebooks would get graded for neatness and things like that. So as a kid, it was between really using my imagination. I mean, sometimes I would just stare at the sky and just wonder. So a lot of that has to do with my sense of wonder and imagination, just that what if factor.
Mm. Oh, I love that. So you help people find that what if factor.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
look at that. What do you think about that? And like getting them to take that action towards that new idea or that inspired thing that came up at the moment, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit more of like maybe like a vulnerable story about like what happened in your life and business, like where you're misaligned or you didn't feel like you were in your purpose. Like how does that play into like why you do this now?
Yeah, absolutely. So the sole reason why I even started my business because I wanted to help people who were grieving. My grandparents, excuse me, had passed away a year and a half from each other. So my grandmother passed away from cancer and my papa a broken heart. So at that time, I really had to figure out what was I meant to do in my life. I was so close to them that them not being around was never a thought in my mind. Meanwhile, I always had this nagging sensation that was just had me thinking, oh, there must be something more. So that's when I really started my journey. So a vulnerable moment or a time even when I felt misaligned was really during that period when I was healing. It took 2 years. So that was definitely a misaligned realignment, figuring out who I am, what I'm meant to do. And the next time that happens when I had my major foot surgery, which was in November 2016, and it led to 2017. I wasn't allowed to walk for about 5 months. So that was another time in my business where I just thought, oh my gosh, if I'm not there, it's not happening, to the fullest extent because I'm the face of the business. So I felt really misaligned, very hurt, very vulnerable. And I had to really focus on getting back into the gears and everything like that. So those were two very important, vulnerable times.
That's hard when you have to grieve, people who have always been there for you and suddenly they're not there anymore. And then, not being able to walk is a really big thing. Like I went through that as well when I broke my rib and my foot got lacerated. So like I could not walk. I could barely even use crutches because it hurt so much. And for 3 months, it was like that. So I can't really imagine how it is doing it for 5 months. You feel so disempowered, right? Like, so you got to ask to go to the bathroom. You ask to do just all kinds of stuff that like normal people take for granted. But
you're happy.
I'm sure it helped you to see like what's important. Like, hey, like being happy and spending time with my family and all of those things that you couldn't probably do, right? Because we always run around and do our own thing, right? But like when you can't really walk, like it really literally feels like you can't move forward, right?
Oh, yeah, it's so true. And you're so right. It really allowed a lot of time for thinking and spending time with family. And I had some of the most amazing family members and friends who visited me and sent me flowers and things like that. So it really made me take a step back, several steps back, and live in that moment where I was also able to receive because I couldn't walk. So I had to receive someone giving me breakfast and things like that. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It allows a lot of time to be spent with family and thought.
So let's talk a little bit more about like when you talk about depths of being in your divine power, like what does that mean, and like why is that important, and like kind of walk us through this process that you usually go through with clients.
Yeah, sure. So our divine power is innate. It's something that every one of us have, and that's really just our ability to tap into our environment, to tap into ourselves, and really just think about, okay, what is my energy? What's that power that's within me? So for someone, it may be that they're very compassionate, and that might be added on with the ability to relate to people. So it's really just a combination of abilities and traits that is amplified in a person. So what I do is I walk people to help them understand, well, what's some of the things that you do or tend to notice? And for example, if someone is, and since we are entrepreneurs, I use clairvoyance. So all entrepreneurs, even if you're a leader or whatever the case may be, you are a visionary, and being clairvoyant is clearly seeing. So I would ask people, okay, are you a big visionary? Do you notice things in situations that other people don't notice? And if they say yes, then I understand that that's part of their power, their divine power that's within them. Or if someone's more of a filler, like I was saying with the compassionate person, then I get that that's their power. So I ask a series of questions to help figure out what that is in them. And that's why it's important, because then you can understand how to react to certain situations.
That's cool. It's exactly kind of what I do as well.
Awesome.
But I use it through going to Akashic records and finding their blueprints. And the blueprints tell me like what is their superpower, what is their life challenges, what are like all parts of their soul, and then we like put it all together and I create like a blueprint a PDF and recordings. So I'm sure like by listening to their story and sharing about where they are and where they want to be and everything, like you kind of like figure out what is the main thing that they should focus on in their life, right? In their business.
Yes.
Bringing that out of them and making them just take steps towards it and go like, hey, like I can actually do readings on people, or like, hey, I can actually like, I love like just talking to people. So like, you know, create masterminds or stuff like that. Like you probably figure out what is the end result, what that looks like for their purpose as well.
Yes. A lot of people who come to me, they just say, I felt like I was a crazy person. That's the common denominator. I thought I was crazy. I felt crazy. People think I'm crazy because they have this power that they haven't really practiced on. So it's just a constant reaction as opposed to understanding how to react. It's just an instant, you know, oh, I don't want to go there, or oh, I can't talk to that person, not understanding that you're picking up on something and here's why. And how does that intertwine with some of the other things that you have going on? Right.
Because sometimes our superpower is so natural that we kind of think like, oh no, it's not me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we have, I call it envy, where you like have an envious thing that you think you are something else, but really you are this other thing that's the most natural thing. And you go like, no, that's not it. That cannot be it. And then you go in and you say like, yeah, that is the thing that you should be paying attention to. And they're like, oh.
Yeah, like, oh, wow. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, cool. I give you permission to do it now. It's so funny, but it is so true. But that is what usually our divine power is really about, like stepping into that and going like, hey, this is actually really easy for me. Not the one that takes 10 times longer, but the one that feels really easy. And that's the one I should actually develop more, not the one that's harder, right?
Right, right. Exactly, exactly.
So in society, I think we always think that we got to work harder to be better, right? To do our purpose. But actually, it's like the opposite way around, right? It's like the thing that's most natural, the thing that really
right, exactly. Right, like whatever's most natural, and don't deny yourself. Like you were just saying, like, no, it's not me. It's like, no, really, it is you, but in a good way, not the way that society is telling you.
Right, especially when it comes to their psychic abilities as well, right? Like, we have all those conceptions of like, okay, you see something, so what does that mean? That means you're like reading through the lines here of me, but really it's not that. It's about helping the person, right? Because you see something that they can't see. So why should that be a bad thing? But we've been told that it's a bad thing. It's like,
right.
You know, it's not really stepping into your power about it. It's going like, oh no, it's over there. But now you show them, hey, like, no, it's over here. It's like right here, like embody it and create it and bring that through you, and then suddenly everything else shifts.
Exactly, just like that, everything shifts, and it's like, oh wow, you know. Yeah, absolutely.
So, what are some steps that you took during that time when you felt really misaligned? Like, how did you get back into alignment? Like, what did you find about like what was your divine power like? Do that process. How did you step back into that aligned the path?
Yeah, that's a very awesome question, because I did something that was very natural for me, and that was reading. I love to read, and I was in the Reading Rainbow Kids Club when I was a kid. And so I wanted to figure out what was going on in my life. And I remember as a kid, I would watch the Montel Williams show with my grandmother, and on Wednesdays, Sylvia Brown was on there. So I figured, let me go get some Sylvia Brown books. So it started with that, and I ended up finding another author. And once I began to read, the things that the authors were writing was exactly what I was experiencing. I'm thinking, wait a minute, whoa, wait. Do you know me? Because they were explaining exactly what I was going through. So that's how I got back into alignment. I was doing something that was, as you were saying, very natural, just reading. That's what really helped me to understand myself better and really just become aligned.
And then that naturally helped you to go like, hey, I actually want to do readings for people and help like them through that process too, right?
Yeah. It's so interesting because I didn't know anything about oracle cards or body energy readings or anything like that. I was doing some of those things, like just knowing but I didn't know what it was called. So the more I learned, the more I was able to put a name to some of the things I was experiencing, and I became more interested. And then I ended up buying some of the author's courses and becoming certified in healing in those ways.
Mm. That's awesome. I think like we do need to go through that process of going like, hey, that's really interesting. And that curious and wonder, right,
Mm-hmm,
allows you
mm-hmm,
to go like, this is actually really cool stuff. Like I want to know more and I want to like create something that is my own, right? Because I'm sure that's
mm-hmm.
what happened later. You're like, no, wait.
Yeah.
So she created that. Like I can create that too. Or,
Yeah.
like what is my unique expression through that process? And so that's what led you to your expression, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, because I just wanted to share my message and help people to heal. And the more I did that, I learned that I was really connecting with a lot of women, and I didn't know which direction it was going to take. And I was very nervous because some of the women were older than me, and I was just some 20-something-year-old just trying to say, hey, I get it that, there's people out there grieving, and I want to be there to help you guys. So yeah, that definitely led me down the path to also being more comfortable speaking with people. So yeah, it is definitely just many add-ons as I went through that process.
Wow, that's amazing. So when you felt like giving up, right? Because I'm sure you kind of like, oh my God, like what am I going to do
Mm-hmm.
about this? Like what keeps you going? Like what do you remind yourself like keeps you going? Because I'm sure when you were in grieving, you're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
like I can't live. Like, all of those
Mm-hmm.
thoughts came through. So what do you do when you feel like you want to give up?
Yeah. Oh man. One thing I do is I read about those who are wildly successful because they had a lot of trials and tribulations, misalignments and realignments. So that's one thing I do. Another thing I do is I think about if I stop now or if I just, quit it all together, who could I possibly be denying a message or help? And I think about that because when I initially started my blog, I just want to write, share a message. I didn't realize how many people were reading it from different areas, even countries. And I just thought, if I stop, I'm going to do a disservice. And even when I was going through my spiritual healing point where I just didn't want to do anything, didn't want to see anybody, I just thought my grandparents wouldn't want me to do that. So it was a combination of thinking about those who came before me, who overcame things, got realigned, what my grandparents would want me to do. And then also how I know I could help people. And if I stopped, I wouldn't be helping anybody.
I love that. That's perfect process of coming back to what matters in your why, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like why that's important and going like, hey, actually I can help people even if I can't can't walk,
Yeah.
right? I don't need to
Yeah.
be frightened about it and share it. And I think it's really important to find the thing that makes you happy of expressing. Like for me writing, for example, takes me like 10 times longer. But if I could just get on a live stream and talk like this the way that we're doing, like I'm having fun, I'm laughing, and it's like it's
Mm-hmm.
so easy. So doing the way that makes you express yourself the most easiest is so important to like follow
Mm-hmm.
that, right? And then all you do is you just create a platform around it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's that natural thing. And also, people can pick up on your expression. If you are someone who's not a writer, but you're trying your best, it's not happening, people are going to pick up on that. Our energy is not limited to, being in the same room. Like you were saying, we're laughing, we're smiling. People are going to pick up on that. So people definitely pick up on what's the most natural. Yeah, definitely. That's everything. That is definitely a golden rule or one of the golden rules people should live by.
Yes, totally, totally. So, how do you define success? Or no, I'm sure because you went through all of the pains and you endured so much. Like, how do you define that now?
Yeah, wow, that is amazing question because if you asked me this, like, gosh, 10, 15 years ago, I would have said, look at my certificates, that's success. Now I would say success is when I am at my happiest, when I know I'm helping people, when I know that whatever I set for myself, a goal, just whatever it is, a task, whenever I complete something, that's when I feel whole and complete and successful. So I would have to say that it's that combination of being happy, helping people, and then hitting my goals. That is just so filled with, I don't even know what word I want to even put there, because it's an emotion. I just feel like whenever I'm doing something that I definitely know is helping people, I automatically feel successful.
Mm, that's good to notice, because I think a lot of people don't even notice that because they're so used to helping people, right?
Yeah.
But making that as a caliber and it's valuable and it's important to you, I think it's so important to acknowledge that.
Yeah, it's very interesting because once we're out there constantly doing, it's very nice to just take a step back and think, you know what? Yeah, that is success. Or like, yeah, that was something good. Or I don't know exactly how I helped that person, but I know that a year from now, maybe even just a simple week from now, that person is going to be in a little better spot than 5 minutes ago. So yeah, that is a definite.
Hmm. And I like how success, the word success for a lot of people is very different and it changes over time, right? Because for me as well, like success was all of that stuff that, I
Mhm.
accomplished. But now it's like about my freedom, my ability to
Yes.
be and express the way I want to, do it whenever I want to, and just be on my own terms about it. But
Mhm.
beforehand, it was all about like the stuff and how I did
Yes.
this, did that, right? But now it's not like,
Mhm.
no, it's about that expression. It's about helping people find that expression and um, keeping them in that momentum as well, like creating that freedom that makes them
Mhm.
happy,
Yeah.
right? That leads to having more time with your family, that leads to having more
Yeah.
money in your bank account, that leads to all the other
Mhm.
stuff, not from out there, but like from
Right.
within.
Right. Yes. And once people get that feeling, they just become juggernauts. It's just, there's no stopping them because now they define it for themselves. It's coming from within. No one's telling them what their success is, what it should look like, who should be involved. It's solely coming from them. And that's so satisfying.
Hmm. So what advice would you give to, someone that's trying to get into their genius and, you know, like what helped you through that process of getting more into alignment and getting, being an expert at what you do? Like what advice would you give to someone who's just kind of starting to figure out what their genius is?
Yeah, I would say start off doing just one or two things that you thought about doing. And going back to what we were talking about, whatever's more natural to you. I love writing, especially creative writing. So that was the most natural thing for me. And also, I didn't want to be the face of anything at the time. That wasn't part of the plan. So I would just say, just start with that. And then you can just transfer it over to any social media platform you want. So yeah, just start with two things and then do a lot of research, watch YouTube videos, read books, join Facebook groups, really get involved. That's the surefire way to get into your own groove. And you can keep it private to yourself. I was taking off the covers on my books when I was reading them because I didn't know exactly what I was doing or who I wanted to share it with. I know that's a lot of a thought process that people go through is, what if someone sees me with this? So while you're in that initial stage, keep it close to the chest, but keep on doing your research and getting involved.
Mm, it's true. We need community or support along
Mm-hmm.
the way as well, because without that, it's kind of like it gets very lonely, right? I'm sure entrepreneurship gets very lonely, and you kind of, again, forget about why you're doing things because you're not surrounded by others to kind of remind you, right? Like what's important
Mm-hmm.
to you. So having that support and being willing to ask questions as well, right? Like ask for
Oh yeah.
help. Like,
Oh
I don't
yeah.
know
Oh
how
my
to do
gosh.
that.
It used to take me an entire day to edit a YouTube video because or at least I know for me, when I work on my material, I want to like change everything and do all this. So it's good to delegate it because then I'm not stuck on one thing. But yeah, asking for help helps because it allows you to make room to grow in other areas. And even if it's something that you love to do, you still may want to ask help in that area because we're always growing and learning and things change. So yeah, and it's good to have that anyway. Even if you think you don't need it, just ask someone to come in and critique you, just so you make sure that you are still in your zone. And the quote I like to use is what Tiger Woods said to an interviewer. Interviewer asked him, if you're the greatest golfer, in the world, why do you need a coach? And he goes, because I can't see my own swing. So it's like that. So ask for help and just see what people have to say.
I love that analogy. You can see where you're swinging.
Yeah, when you think about it, yeah, you can.
You're just swinging, right? You're not thinking about how the technique looks like or like what would improve better or anything. You do need somebody out there to be like, hey, you could swing it like this instead of like
right, straighten up your bag or something. Yeah.
Unless, I guess you watch videos of yourself, but like, who wants to watch videos of yourself? You might
yeah.
of you.
No, yeah, for real, yeah. It's just you start critiquing yourself a little bit too harshly, like stop looking.
Yeah, it's so important to have a mentor or somebody that's where you are right now, right? Like where you want to go, because then they embody something that you can kind of model or even like take steps towards. Like that's what really worked for me. Like when I was so shy and I didn't really want to get out there, like I just made myself get out there because the community of people that were actually going out there as well, right? Getting online and sharing their message, writing books and talking on stages and stuff. I was like, wow, that's so cool. Like I want to do more of that. And it just inspires you to do more, right? Rather than to stay in your little box and behind the your screen.
Yes, we all need that friend that very, well, it's funny, I want to say extrovert, but the extroverts I know are really introverts, but they just push themselves out there. But we all need that friend that gives us push. So a quick story, one day my friend, and she's an extrovert, it's probably like introvert extrovert, and she made me go to a story slam, and I was terrified, and I just was trying to come up with any excuse not to go. She goes, you need to practice, you got to do this. And I thought, okay. And I was just hoping and praying that they didn't call my name, but they did. And I forget what story I told them, but they loved it. And I was like, oh, really? Okay, cool. But yeah, it's true. We need to put ourselves out there. Sometimes we won't do it, which is why it's important, as you were saying, have that community that will just give us that nice little nudge we need to go out there.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't have gotten on the stage at all if somebody didn't push you out there.
Yeah. Can't run off now. You're already there.
Right? It's kind of like when you're at a wedding, right? And everybody wants to dance, but you're like, yeah, I want to dance too. But like, you're like, okay, we'll wait until everybody else dances and somebody just starts dancing and everybody else dances.
Yeah.
But before
wait for that one song.
Right? Waiting for the one song that everybody's going to start dancing. But actually, it's just that little push that gets us over the line that we're like, oh, this is like normal. Everybody likes dancing too. Like, Thank you so much for spending time with us. Why don't you share with us how we can get in touch with you? It sounds like you do amazing work helping people. What is the next step that they would need in order to get help?
Sure, yeah. So they can find me at tiamariejohnson.com. There's also the freebies that are there for you. Get your juicy, spiritual, transformational, all that jazz goodies there. And I'm also on Instagram all the time, Tia_Johnson_.
Yeah, awesome. Follow her. It sounds like she has some amazing content coming out.
Yeah.
Any last words you want to share with us before we go?
Well, I want to thank you for having me on here. I had a blast. And as far as last words, I would just say it's okay to be you. And I know that initially, we want to put our best foot forward, but our best foot forward is us being us. And I guarantee you, is not as bad as you think it is, but you'll always be relieved when you live your life via your truth. So that's my final words.
Ooh, beautiful. Thank you for that. Thank you, everybody, for listening in. We're going to continue my LeimomiTV interview series where, again, we're interviewing amazing six-figure, seven-figure entrepreneurs who are doing amazing things, who are master genius at what they do. And we will continue that in the next year. So I'm so happy that Tia had spent some time with us, because some of the things that you told us were just amazing. Golden nuggets. It's just so simple things, but it's so profound as well. So thank you for having to spend that time with us. Right. You guys all have a beautiful day. Aloha.